Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Daily Mirror's Facebook Live on the 10th wedding anniversary of William and Kate. There's been precious few reasons to get dressed up over the last year. So I have got dressed up, I have a fascinator on, and I have my good friend, Daily Mirror royal photographer Ian Vogler here with me. Lovely to see you, Ian. It's been a while since we chatted on the Royal podcast, Pod Save the Queen, and it's nice to be back now with on Facebook instead.
It's very nice to be back and talking about a happier occasion than of recent weeks.
Yes, it's been a bit lively recently. Well, initially sort of chaos and then sadness with the funeral of Prince Philip. But yes, like you said, happy to remember a really grand royal occasion. And I think we've been quite spoiled over the last few years. There's been loads of royal weddings, but back in 2011, huge excitement because it had been a long time since there had been such a big do, really.
Yeah, it had been. I can't remember how many years, but quite a few years, wasn't it? A long, long time.
And so you were out. I was in the office that day doing all of the, internet type stuff, and you were out on the ground covering things. What's your sort of abiding memory of that day?
Well, it was we had lots of colleagues, lots of photographers all over the place. We had military planning, we had meetings, and I was on what they call the QVM, the Queen Victoria Memorial, which looks like a big birthday cake right in front of the palace, but it's quite a few hundred meters from the palace, and that's where you see the balcony for the kiss picture, which is always a favorite for the media, both here and abroad. So because of road closures and letting the public get near it, we basically had to be there about 6 o'clock in the morning. So a long, long wait. Roads were closed. I remember buying a big trolley from B&Q the day before and loading everything onto this trolley from a hotel nearby, and then having to basically trudge a good couple of miles, down the road to get there, to be there about 6 o'clock in the morning with loads of colleagues. To wait it out, basically. Luckily, as you remember, as you can see from the pictures, it was a nice day.
Yeah, it would have been a bit of a shame for everybody, including you, if you'd been standing there in the pouring rain. Dedication to the cause, 6 a.m. start and heading out. But I bet there were some royal fans out there with you, as well as all of the photographers.
Yeah, there's a plan. It's a similar plan they use at Trooping of the Colour when Trooping of the Colour is allowed. The public hang about on the Mall, which is further up from the palace. You can see in the background picture, you can sort of see the Mall. And the public stand around the Mall. The Malls are obviously closed to traffic. They stand in the road. And then nearer the time, the police escort the public down. So there's thousands of people waiting up the road for the event to happen, for the couple to come onto the balcony. And you could hear the noise and the excitement of those people. It just sort of adds to the occasion. Obviously, we saw the carriages going before the wedding, and the build-up was, it was hugely anticipated event. But ironically, being right there in front of it, we were somewhat cut off from the world because communications we were struggling because everyone who turned up seemed to want to stream it to their friends via their phones. So we were a little bit cut off. I think I just had my little transistor radio. It's like a bit of a throwback to the 80s, just to make sure everything was going to time.
Well, yeah, the internet 10 years ago and mobile phones weren't quite what they are today, really, not so super speedy. It was that classic thing come New Year's Eve where your mum would send you a text message at about 9:30 to say, I'm wishing you a happy new year now in case the network goes down at midnight. And obviously they still do that because that's what mums do. But, all of those people trying to share all of that excitement. And, most people, obviously, millions around the world watching it on TV at home. How much of a sense did you have of, kind of what was unfolding and where things were in progress? Because I guess you need to know when it's going to be your moment and be ready to get that picture, because it's such a major event. I mean, it'd be a nightmare to miss the moment.
Yeah, it would be. But the balcony picture, you got some heads up. They basically open the doors. So, once a guy comes out of those glass doors, once they're open, that everything's about to happen. All the royal family are about to come out. The couple came out. And, you know, from then on in, you're looking at, you know, a few minutes, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes, the whole thing. So you're there from 6 o'clock in the morning, waiting for those few minutes of activity to make it work, and potentially make, you know, any photographer wants to get on the front page of their publication. And that's what you're trying to achieve. So, you know, that's what you want. But it's, you know, it's got to happen first. Basically, they've got to, you know, got to have the kiss, which obviously they did, and it's got to be, you know, it's got to be in front of you, which more or less it would be. So, but there's various technical challenges. It's a long way away. It's several hundred meters. The biggest lens made were handed out to us by the wonderful people at Canon. They managed to find them from all over Europe, ship them into London, and lent them out to us. And amazing. But you can't legislate for heat haze. That's a fantastic enemy of photographers. Even in the UK, believe it or not, heat haze can be a problem, especially when you're working over those distances. And then the people that are allowed down in front of the palace, as they move down, obviously there's their movement, there's dust coming up, there's pollen, there's heat, there's all of these factors that you can't legislate for until it's actually happened. You don't know how it'll affect the image until after you've taken the picture. So you've got all those things to take into account. And then obviously transmitting the thing. But my the then picture editor, Ian, he was right. You know, it's great you're going to be there. It's great you're going to get a picture. But how bloody hell are you going to get it to me? You know, everyone will be on their phone. So we hired, believe it or not, a sat phone, a little box of tricks as big as a laptop that you point to the sky, and your picture goes literally up to a satellite in the sky to beam back down to Canary Wharf about 4 miles away at the cost of something like 10 quid a minute.
I think it's usually, you know, the defense editor, when he's being sent out to Iraq and Afghanistan and all those dangerous places, it's normally him that gets sent off with the sat phone. But there you are in the middle of middle of London, in the middle of a happy day, using this to make sure the picture gets back. And how is it in the pen with all of the photographers? Is everybody good natured, or is there a bit of like jostling and elbows to get the best position?
No, it's fairly you space yourselves out. Everybody knows everybody. So it was made up of 75% of British photographers that knew each other. There were some international photographers in there. At the time, owing to the government's take on these things, we actually had to pay quite a considerable amount of money. So we were very relieved to find that the people who'd put the stand up, I think it's English Heritage or somebody, had done us the courtesy of putting in some restroom facilities, as our American friends would say, because that was a concern when you're going to be there from that time of day. But yeah, it was really well-natured. Everybody's, you know, trying to get the same thing. They're trying to get the front page of their publication, or the guys working for agencies are trying to get as many publications as possible. So everyone is sort of in it together. So it's great to work with colleagues that are such, you know, old friends as well. And then once you get the picture, you've then got to look at it on you can look at it on a computer, or you can send it directly from the camera. If you want to make sure it's a really good picture, you're going to get it onto the laptop and have a look at it. But then you're in bright sunlight. So then you see this fabulous image of a load of photographers sitting on the ground with their jackets or coats over their heads to get some shade, even on a hot day, to see whether or not the picture's worth sending. It's there's not really a piece of equipment made for that. So your coat or jacket does for that little task anyway.
Jumpers for goalposts. Let's have a look at your picture, the iconic picture of the day that was on the Mirror's front page. It wasn't just a kiss on the balcony, as marvelous a moment as that was. You know, William resplendent in his uniform, Kate looking absolutely gorgeous in her McQueen dress and the tiara and the, you know, really sort of elegant bouquet of flowers. And then obviously romance there, and then, you know, one of the bridesmaids stealing the show brilliantly, and just that sort of, I don't know, real life and happiness, and just sort of a funny moment, as well as the romance and the grandeur.
Yeah, the poor little girl. I've forgotten her name now.
Kitson, I think.
Right, that's it. Yeah. So she's obviously been told, you know, this is what's happening, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, and obviously you're going to be on your best behaviour. But no one told her that there's going to be a great big flyover from the RAF of, you know, 4 or 5 massive aeroplanes, including thousands of people screaming, and all these planes coming over the top. And I think she was just, really freaked out. And there were some versions of this picture from other colleagues from different angles. She doesn't really feature in the picture, but luckily for me, she featured in the picture. And I think it really makes it, doesn't it? There she is. I mean, that picture will obviously maybe, be with her forever. And I think it helped tell the story in a sort of entertaining way.
Absolutely. It was a very memorable moment. I mean, it was such a brilliant day, and I know there's I don't think it's a picture that we've got together, but when they popped back out and did their little turnaround in the classic car, having a little drive about, and there were elements that were a throwback to previous royal weddings. You've got the balcony kiss, but it still felt like it was their day done a bit differently, and that they'd had a bit of fun with it. I mean, you've spent, not a lot of time, but quite a lot of time with them over the past 10 years. You went on their first tour, which was not that long after they got married, and multiple tours with them since. How they seem to be a really sort of strong partnership, both as a family unit and as a royal working unit. What's your experience been, sort of seeing them up close?
Yeah, they do. They do a great job of. There's an art to this sort of small talk. Talking to people who you've never met about something you might not know very much about. They're obviously briefed beforehand, but whenever they do, there's a picture of them last week. Air cadets they were talking to. I'm pretty sure that Prince William knows quite a bit about the military, but they engaged with the youngsters there last week, chatting about all a variety of topics, and they seem to master the people that they speak to are left, without any doubt that they actually, engage with them and were interested in them. So they're good. The best bit is when it's anything competitive, right? Where last week they, with the air cadets, the Duchess was invited to get in a flight simulator. It's looks like the cockpit of a small aircraft rigged up to computers. And as she got into it, William's standing there saying, "Oh, this will be interesting," thinking that perhaps she might crash. But she didn't, actually. I think she kept it flying. So, they get competitive, and that always turns into good pictures. They've done some canoeing stuff, some rowing stuff on different tours. And it's genuine competitiveness, and it makes for great pictures.
I think we saw that. I think back in Canada, was it? They were racing dragon boats on that very first trip, and I think there were so many things in that trip that did really sort of set the tone for what we've seen of them since, in terms of having fun and mucking in and being sort of out and about, and then also super glam. That I think it was a dress for a BAFTA thing in LA that Kate wore. So that is still one of those really memorable pictures. Definitely, I ended up with. I think the first 2 years of Kate's royal fashion are indelibly ingrained in my head because I was writing about it so much of the time. How do you think they've sort of changed and grown, I guess, into their roles? 10 years, 3 kids later, and very much now a central, fundamental part of the working royal family. They had that time out initially. William was still working as a helicopter pilot. They were living on Anglesey immediately after they got married. So they had a bit of time together first, and then they've moved into being full-time, very busy working royals, really.
Yeah, I think it's for any couple to, have 3 kids in 10 years. That's quite hard. I mean, obviously they've got a support network. They've got help with it, but there's still a lot to do there. And now, I think 10 years ago they were the younger royals, and we didn't. Now things are changing. Obviously, with the loss of the Duke of Edinburgh, we're all more and more aware of the Queen's age now, aren't we? That's coming up a lot, obviously. And things will change, Nobody's going to go on forever. So I think they're becoming more and more towards where they're going to go next. Who knows where it will go. But I think they they take things seriously, but they're so good with young. I think I've seen them more with younger people than older people, and they fit in there really, really well. So I think they're getting towards, being molded more for what will come next.
Although they did do a very nice job of the bingo calling during one of their coronavirus visits, with the sort of virtual visits with one of the care homes, I think. Some lovely pictures have been released today, a couple of portraits by Chris Floyd, who works for photographer who works for Camera Press, I think, and who made his name originally in the Britpop era, which would have been when William and Kate were growing up, and all of those great bands of the 90s. So Chris Floyd took these two pictures. He posted on his Instagram, he said, "I recently visited Cambridge for the first time in my life. That same day, by an astonishing coincidence, was also the day I was asked to photograph the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge for their 10th wedding anniversary. It was a thrill to spend some time with them at Kensington Palace, especially as the Duchess is a rather keen photographer. Happy anniversary." I think it's interesting looking at these pictures. I think they look very well 10 years on, and it's very cute, the sort of cuddling, and we've got showing off Kate's engagement ring, which obviously belonged to Diana before her in this picture that we can see now, and then the other one that's they're just quite warm, I think, is the feeling that I get from them. What do you make of these two pictures and what they tell us about them?
Yeah, they do. They just look like pictures of a couple. They don't necessarily look like the kind of image we'd expect to see of the future King of England, but they are really nice. You could argue that someone in the picture's got less hair than they had 10 years ago, but that might well be the same for me. But all in all, I think they look really nice pictures. They just look relaxed and happy, not too formal, and nicely done pictures. Not overly complicated, not fussy lighting or fancy backgrounds or anything. Just nice pictures.
Nice way to mark the occasion. It's interesting as well. So Chris Floyd has twice, I think, won the Taylor Westing the Portrait Prize, which is held at the National Portrait Gallery each year, which is one of Kate's patronages. So a little link there, which I thought was quite interesting. Who are your favourite royals to photograph, Ian?
Well, I think they're all very good. The most difficult, potentially, you could have said, the Duke of Edinburgh famously told a photographer to just bleeping take the picture. He never wanted to hang about. He was always in a hurry to get his picture done and go off to the next thing. I think they're always amenable. The Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, he quite enjoys having his picture taken. He knows, he's more understanding, I think, of the role of the media, because obviously he's been doing it for a very long time. And Camilla too. They both understand the value of pictures. I think the younger royals understand it too, because people want to see what they're up to, and without pictures and footage, no one's going to be able to do that. It is interesting that the way it works, people maybe don't know that we were with the Cambridges in Scandinavia, and there was a local photographer was going to come on a visit to a museum, and he said to me, "Oh, what do you call them?" I said, "What do you mean? What do I call them?" He said, the royals. How do you call out to them if you want them to look at your camera? I said, "Well, we just don't." He said, No. He said, "Look, what do you say when you want like William to look at your camera?" I said, "We don't do that. That just doesn't happen." He couldn't understand it. Anyway, he tried it about 2 minutes into the job. About 3 minutes into the job, he suddenly was being asked to leave the building. So it's an interesting relationship. We're there, but they don't want us to interrupt. They don't want us to speak to them. We're just there to record the event, and that's it. Occasionally, if there's a group picture, you might, ask them to look one way or the other. So there was one we went to Cyprus, and William was supposed to hand over some presents to the commanding officer of a base. So they all lined up for it, and he was standing right in front of the Christmas tree, and it was ruining the picture. So I said, "Oh, sir, you're blocking." And he thought I meant I was blocking Kate. So he said, "Oh, you just want to see a picture of my wife, don't you? I'll go." I said, "No, you're blocking the Christmas tree." He said, "Oh, I didn't see that there." So it's an interesting relationship whereby we just are there, but we're there to do what we've got to do, but we're not there to speak to them, and we don't say, "Oi, sir, look this way, that way." It just doesn't happen.
Well, hopefully now that We are coming out of lockdown. There'll be a few less virtual calls and a few more real life ones as the royals start to get out and about again, as I'm sure you've missed being able to be out and about on jobs and traveling with them and having adventures. So fingers crossed for a return to that safely and getting a bit back to normal. Thanks to everybody who's joined us today. Thanks to Ian. If you love hearing the royal chat, then do join us on Pod Save the Queen. It's a weekly royal podcast where Ian comes along every now and then, but my regular companion is Daily Mirror royal editor Russell Myers. You can find us at podfollow.com/pod-save-the-queen. That's a mouthful. And also you can get daily royal updates by signing up to the Mirror's royal newsletter. You can find that at www.mirror.co.uk/email. So make sure you don't miss the royal headlines, the amazing pictures that Ian and his colleagues, both our sort of colleagues on the Mirror who do go out and about when they can, and others like Chris Floyd who get invited into the inner sanctum every now and then for those special portraits. But happy 10th wedding anniversary to William and Kate. It's 10. I wonder what they'll have got each other. Thank you very much for joining us today. Nice to see you, Ian.